So let me go ahead and get logged in. All right, so you'll kind of remember if you've been on one of these sessions before, really the landing page is always the schedules. But along the bottom, just briefly, some of this again will be review for some of you guys. We've got this action center. We have schedules, of course. We have the notes section where you can very easily see notes that have not been started, where you have schedules in place. We have notes that have been signed, and then we have unsigned. So again, this would be date restricted, but you guys kind of get the idea. And then, of course, timesheets. Not a lot has changed within timesheets. You can still see this is a lot of what we had last fall. So again, not a lot of changes in this area. Totaling of hours. You can, as you could before, add manual time entries via pay types if that's something that your agency does. Things like mileage, training time, things that are not directly billable. And then, of course, the profile page. We're going to talk about a lot of this in a little more detail. But I would say that the biggest enhancements have really been in 4 of these areas. We've seen enhancements in the scheduling area in particular. We've seen major enhancements in notes. So that would include different note types, improvements in the way that notes present or are completed. Varying like multi-time, multi-day, some enhancements around clock functionality for any of you guys that are doing EVV-based services. So a lot of enhancements around notes, enhancements around schedules. And then we also have a handful of enhancements around the profile section, which is on that far right, and then the home section, which I'll kind of finish up with. We'll talk about the home, some of those enhancements we've seen there. And then just overall enhancements to make the app more stable, to enhance the user experience, give better feedback on different functions, all that good stuff. So let me go ahead and let's jump in with notes. I think that's where we've seen a lot of enhancements, again, notes and schedules. But if I go to schedules, first thing I want to show you, if I scroll to today, and it's showing, yes, I did miss this clock in, but I'm going to be able to clock in anyway. So I was scheduled for 10:30. It's clearly showing that missed clock. This would be an EVV service primarily. So one thing, and this is a minor thing, but I think it's still important, we have improved what's called the loading mask for clock ins. And it just gives you better visual feedback on the clock in process. So if I clock in, you get that very distinct clock in successful. And right before that, you probably saw the spinning, right? That kind of spinning icon, that's a loading mask. We didn't have that before. So you didn't have this really good visual feedback to say, hey, am I clocking in, right? Have I successfully clocked in? So just, some tweaks, some things that have improved the system, things that have improved the user experience. And then if I go, let's go ahead. Obviously, I see clocked in as of, and nothing has changed there. The clock out, nothing's really changed there function-wise. If I go ahead and start the note, however, there have been some really good improvements here that I want you guys to kind of see. If you haven't seen these or you haven't read through the release notes, it just has to do with the visuals. It has to do with the way that things are presented to the user, the way that like interventions and assessments. And again, we're just talking about grid notes right now. We'll jump into Pi notes here in a minute. Grid notes in particular, we've seen a lot of improvements with the UI. So you'll notice now we've got the slider for independent, right? Not applicable, refuse. So where there's not a variable, there's not a variation like you would see with verbal gesture where you've got a number, right? So like where I've got, okay, yeah, I did 2 verbal prompts, right? Now we've just got this very simple, very easy to use slider. So we didn't have that before. That's a really big thing. And then again, just, check boxes, the visual delineation, the way that we now have interventions very clearly separated from the assessments. A lot of that is new. So a lot of that is just, kind of again, improvements within the UI, improvements for the user experience. So that's primarily, nothing else has really changed there in terms of continuing on with the node, with signing of the node, clocking out. Functionality wise, there haven't been a lot of changes here in terms of EVV required services using grid nodes. Okay. But I think those are super important. Some really good things that are going to help your staff, make it a lot easier for them. All right, so let's bounce back to scheduling. So I did mention notes. That's been a huge area of improvement and kind of forward progress with the mobile app. As of now, two main supported note types, and you guys are likely most familiar, grid notes and Pi notes, or clinical notes, as they're called in OnTarget. So Pi notes came in a little bit later in the series versioning. So if you haven't seen that, I'm just going to create a Pi note on the fly. This is another awesome thing now, something that you don't have in the mobile site. And one reason why we're really kind of moving away from the mobile site, there's a lot of functionality that's now kind of lacking there, that we just have a lot more functionality within the mobile app. So I'm going to just demonstrate a Pi note real quick. So I'm going to say I did this Pi note on the 20th, and I can now search from all clients. Now, depending on my role, depending on my configuration, we absolutely are respecting all of the role configuration that you set up for your roles within the desktop. So whether that be cost center rules or assigned client rules. You can see here I have 3 assigned clients, client 73, Johnny Cool, and Susie Cool. My role, however, also allows for searching of clients. So I could start searching for George Harrison, for instance, and George Harrison is going to show up. And again, that is only because I have that ability to do that. So again, let me just kind of go back. Let's start this note. And let's go for Johnny Cool. And the service type, let's pick a good mental health service, 90832. So the psychotherapy service. Duration, let's say this is 1. And then I'm going to go ahead and launch that node by creating. And really, really, really big improvement here. The main reason I'm wanting to show you Pi notes, because some of you're already using Pi notes with the mobile. You've seen a lot of this already. But a huge improvement. Some of you may remember you maybe had custom fields within the header of your Pi note. Those on earlier versions of the mobile app were being presented at the end of the note. which was not as intuitive, right? We wanted, if you've got it in the header, if it's supposed to be presented really early in the note creation process, we want to mirror that in what we see in the desktop. So that's what you're seeing here. These two checkboxes. So these are obviously required and common. Those drop downs for type of contact and service location. But the checkboxes, those are custom fields. Those are custom checkboxes that are added to the header section of the note. They are now properly presenting at the beginning of the note. So vastly improved. I think it's another reason to start using the mobile app. Definitely going to be a lot easier to use. Let's say a client was recently hospitalized. Unfortunately, we're going to select pie goal number 1. And then we've just done a lot to improve the visuals, again, the UI. So if I skip over a section, we very clearly indicate, hey, I skipped over that section. So you can see that red. So the effectiveness of the pie, I skipped over. And if that's required, if that is set as a required field per your agency's rules, I certainly would need to go back to previous. It's clearly marked that I need to complete that. Please enter an intervention. Please enter effectiveness of intervention. And so you guys kind of see, again, anytime I skip over, I'm going to see that red. Just a lot of visual improvements, a lot of UI improvements as well. All right, guys. Any questions? If you have any questions so far, I think we're about 10 minutes in, so we've got about 20 minutes left in session. I think we're doing really well on time. Any questions that you have, if you want to add those via Q&A or the chat, you can certainly do that now. And give you a little bit of time there if you want to do that, and then we'll just keep moving. All right, guys. Well, if we don't have anything, we will keep moving along. So the next thing I want to show you some really big improvements around the scheduling piece, and really scheduling and notes, right? Scheduling and notes are so closely tied to one another. The first one I want to show you is overnight. So if you've got any individuals that are providing overnight services, and this would really apply especially to residential. So you've got maybe that kind of split shift idea, and you can kind of see that. I've got this overnight service that was clearly starting at 8 o'clock. Our time, and you guys, I'm sure, are very familiar with this if you've been an on-target user for some time. New day starts, right? April 23rd, moving into the 24th. So we're ending that at 11:59. It restarts at 12 a.m. and then ends at 6 a.m. on the 24th. So we're doing a couple of things here. We are very clearly indicating when there is an overnight shift. So the system is auto-detecting when there's the same service, the same caregiver providing that service to the same client, and it's spanning over midnight. And you can see that because we've got this little moon symbol. Okay, so your staff very clearly will see that symbol indicating that this is overnight and that it's really spanning across midnight. So a couple of really good things here. You certainly can have clocking in and clocking out going alongside this. In this example, we're not seeing that. I'm going to show you a quick screenshot in a minute where we do see that, where we have sort of the overnight, but we also have this clock functionality going. But a very good visual. There's no question, this is overnight. I've got the little moon symbol there. Certainly, this was scheduled for a couple of days ago, right? So this was on the 23rd. But I'm going to go ahead and start that node. System's going to let me do that. And then I can confirm the time. And then here's a really, really cool thing. I can add a shift to the note. And so it's automatically pulling up this associated second piece of time. It's basically saying, okay, do you want to essentially aggregate that time, add that additional time onto this single note, right? And in fact, yes, I do. And again, just keep in mind, I'm writing this kind of after the fact. I'm not doing this kind of real time as it's happening. But there we go. We get the successful node data refresh successfully. And now I get indicated both shifts are really added to that same note. Okay. Clearly, client, service, caregiver, all that good information is displayed. If I go back to the schedule, there we go, right? So I can continue on with the node. If I click on start node, it's just going to bring me right back into that node that I started. And so that's kind of the gist of the overnight. Now, where we have some automation here is in that clock functionality. So let me stop my share just real quick. I'm going to actually start my share from. All right. So hopefully, you guys can. If you guys can just give me a thumbs up. Can you see my? This is from my secondary screen. So I've got a PowerPoint pulled up. Does that look good, guys? Can you see that now? Okay, awesome. Now, yes, thank you. Thanks, Aaron, for confirming that, and Carrie. All right, guys. So, a couple of things. Again, some of this can be a little challenging to live demo because we're talking about these overnight functions. So, really quickly, with the time we've got left, I want to kind of just show you some of these screenshots. So, this is an example where we've got the overnight, but we also have this clock functionality. Now, full disclosure here, this does not include shift scheduling. So if you've got anybody or you're an agency that is using the residential shift scheduling, this is not encompassing that. Okay, this would be a one staff to one client regular scheduling. But we're leveraging this clock in and clock out functionality. Okay, so just putting that disclaimer out there. So you can see the clock in is there. We can see that this is overnight, clearly indicated by the moon icons. I just clicked into this, just kind of imagine the shift you clocked into is associated to an overnight schedule. The next scheduled clock event will be a clock out at 8 p.m. Accept, and then there we go. So once clocked in, the user does not need to clock out. This is huge, guys. This is an auto clock out, auto clock in when we have this time span. When we have two scheduled events, same service, same client, same caregiver, they're spanning across midnight. And there is a clock functionality that is thrown into the mix. Before, we had a really big challenge where the staff had to clock out right at 11:59 and then clock right back in at 12 o'clock, right at 12 a.m. The system now has this functionality built in, and this is on the desktop as well. But now the system will auto clock them out at 11:59 and auto clock them back in at 12 a.m. Now, if they need to clock in before 11:59, they certainly can. That's why we have this clock out button here, because we're giving them that option, right? If they needed to dip out at 11 p.m., that's no problem. And then finally, I do want to just show you a couple of other improvements, a couple of other functions that have come in. I know we're kind of running really short on time here. Offline mode. This has been huge. So this relates specifically to clock in and clock out only currently. This does not have any storage of note documentation. But this is really, really big for folks that are in rural areas, where maybe the internet access can be spotty. So staff would get this message saying, whoops, you're offline. No worries. You can still clock in and out for your scheduled shift offline. So they would be able to log in, and then here you go. They're going to get that indication you are offline, but they can still clock in, and we're going to store that clock in. So this will be, and then they get this message, this will be synced when you're back online. So once online access is restored, it's gonna basically sync all of that clock data, the clocking in, the clocking out will be synced right back into the server, right back into on target. Nothing is going to be lost. So this is huge. This is really going to prevent a lot of manual overhead. A lot of those times where folks have missed clocking in and out, and frankly, it wasn't their fault. It was just simply they didn't have internet access. So this is a big one. This is huge with mobile. All right, guys, let me just very quickly again bounce right back in, and I'm going to share from my mobile. Got a few more things. I appreciate you guys kind of hanging tight. We may go just a few minutes over. All right, guys. So some other really, really big improvements. The profile. This is huge. So for your staff to be able to access out in the field their client profiles, right? So assign clients. If I click on assign clients, I can access client record data. Now, again, I definitely want to put this out there. Access for the user follows their role access set within the desktop. So we are not breaking any of that relationship. If you do not allow for client record access, then they will not see this, right? They're not going to have access. So it's all in what you have allowed. So let me just kind of bounce in here real quickly, just kind of speed through and give you an idea of kind of what's available. It's really all the basics, right? It's parts of the client profile. If you have given access to general, to medical section, to the history tab, to treatment, then they're going to be able to see that now. And that's huge. That's just the ability to have access to that. If I've got a doctor's appointment with one of my clients, with a consumer, and we're out and I need to get at that medical history, I've got it right there. So it's really, you're going to see all of the subsections, right? So general, identification, right? We see all of that good info right there. If I click on medical, I can see any medications, allergies, I can see diagnoses, history, admissions, assessments, consents. And again, they're only going to see what you've given them access to. But certainly in this example, I can see all those sections. There's another option here too. If I go, there's another way of kind of getting at the client access and client search, if I click on Action Center and then I click on the home icon, we have a new client search feature that has been brought in. And this is really big too, guys. So if I'm not restricted by assigned clients, and again, this all depends on user access and role configuration. Everything follows within on target. But I can search directly for clients. So again, if I said, I want to search for a specific client, I know I've got access to them. I'm not restricted by assigned clients. Here we go. This is just kind of another way, a kind of higher level way of getting at client record data. Again, if I have access to that per my role. There are also really good filters available now. So if I click on filters, I can look by a specific date range. So that would maybe, that relates to their date of birth. I can look by cost centers. So if I said, look, I want to check out all of the folks that are in the Charlotte cost center and I want to view the results. Here we go. Here are all those clients and all of their profiles and information that are associated with the Charlotte cost center. So again, I can go right into Charlie Brown's record and I'm going to be able to pull up any of that info. Again, this is read only. I can't make any changes to this, but it's just another great way, again, of gaining access to those records when I need them on demand. And again, if I'm allowed access to those sections. All right, guys, thanks for hanging with me. Just the last couple of things. I'm going to move very quickly here. Multi-time notes are now fully supported. So, but they must be scheduled. So non-scheduled notes for multi-time are not currently supported. So multi-time, again, would be like split shift. So if we look at community networking, for instance, if I go back to my schedule, that is very clearly indicated. You see the split shift here. And if I click on split shift, it shows me that's exactly what this is. I've got an 8 to 10 a.m. block and I've got a 2 to 4 p.m. block on the same data service. So multi-time, fully supported now for scheduled events. So nothing really changed there as far as starting the note. All that is still pretty much the same. Last thing with notes, this is really huge. This actually got released just this week, and that is multi-day notes. So again, this is allowing for the entry of multiple dates of service on a single note. So if I go to day support, for instance, you will see I've got a date scheduled for Monday the 21st and Tuesday the 22nd. I can start that note, and then, of course, I could go into the goals. Certainly can do all that, and then I can confirm the time, but now I can add those additional dates. So it's not just multiple times. I'm actually able to add the multiple dates now as well. So that just came in this week. So if I've got a service where I can do an entire week's worth of services and that's scheduled out and that needs to go onto a single note and then the billing needs to flow from there, we absolutely support that via the mobile now. So again, just keep in mind, multi-time notes currently, multi-day notes have to be scheduled. That may change in the future, but right now, those events have to be scheduled in order for that to work. All right, guys. One other thing, premise location, clock in and clock out. We've improved the way that we capture the location data. So this is effectively eliminating gaps in address retrieval for clock in and clock out. So nothing really to show you there. That was just more of a back-end improvement, but premise location, just again, an improvement, just getting a lot more accurate on how we capture the location of the clock in and the clock out. Let's see, we've got something in the chat here. Nope, I think we're good. All right. If you guys can just hang with me, maybe 1-2 more minutes. I do want to kind of show you this. Let's go ahead. All right. All right, can you guys see my screen? Just give me a quick thumbs up if you can see me. I know I'm kind of bouncing back and forth here. Awesome, thank you. All right, so last little bit here, I do want to just bounce into on target. So real quick, the multi-time, multi-day, as always, has really been controlled at the note template level. So if I go to configure and list configuration, note templates, notes, note templates, this is what we're talking about, right? So this is how we define when you go to schedule, when you schedule a service and that service is then associated with a default template, we are parsing that. We're actually setting that right here. If that template is defined as multi-day, that's how it's going to be presented, and that's how the functionality is going to flow for that service, for that template. If it is set as multi-time, that's how it's going to flow, right? So that's really set here. If we've got a yes under multi-time, it's a multi-time based. If it's a multi-day yes, that's how it's going to flow. So just kind of keep that in mind as you guys, if you need to transition or you're transitioning over to using multi-time or multi-day and you haven't been using that, that's what you'll need to keep in mind.